Let's take a quick look at the StruBIM Steel interface to see what the program is like and what its main functions are. The program is structured into two tabs, Model and Documents, which can be accessed from the top left-hand side of the interface. The main toolbar, located under these tabs, contains different features depending on the tab selected. Below the main toolbar, the work environment has a dockable window system that we can customize to adapt the workspace to our needs. On the left-hand side, there are 4 panels that can be used to manage the visibility of the elements in the project. The first window shows a list of the model views. We can create, edit, and delete views to work with different visualizations of the model, including 3D views and 2D views such as elevations, plans, and sections. Below are the elements read from the different models that make up the project developed on the BIMserver.center platform. There are options for activating visibility, modifying the display mode, or locking these elements. The next window allows us to create, manage, and delete tags that we can assign to the elements in the StruBIM Steel model to freely group them into information layers with a different reference and colour, with the ability to enable or disable their visibility and snapping. In the last panel, we manage the visibility and snapping of the own elements, meaning the elements directly modelled in the StruBIM Steel file we are working with. The work area on the right-hand side shows the selected view of the model. Here we can enter, edit, and delete elements in a completely 3D working environment. Again, in the top toolbar, if we select the first tab, Model, we find options for completing the model of the structure. The project options allow us to configure the codes and libraries of the elements, as well as to consult the elements entered in the BIM model. Further to the right, thanks to the Enter and Edit tools, we can enter, edit, and place elements such as sections, plates, bolts, anchors, and welds to define the structure in detail directly in the program. These options also allow us to check, edit, or delete the sections imported from a model developed in another program incorporated in the BIMserver.center project. Optionally, we can define the connections in detail and analyze them using a finite element model and the OpenC's analysis engine, which allows us to carry out several code checks on the connections. To do so, we use the specific options for entering connections at the intersection of several bars or accessories on a bar. When creating a connection or an accessory, we access the window for modelling and analysing connections, shared with the Cype Connect program. This window can also be accessed by selecting the Edit option on a connection or accessory that has already been created. Here, there are 3 tabs at the top: Model, Analysis, and Sheets. In the first tab, Model, we add the different elements that make up the connection through the available operations. After completing the definition of the connection, we access the Analysis tab, where we carry out the analysis and checking of the connection. Next, we go to the Sheets tab, where we find the tools for creating and editing the detailed drawings of each connection. We can also access these connection sheets later on. By accepting this window, we return to the general interface. In the top toolbar, the program has added tools for carrying out measurements on the model, as well as for carrying out the analysis of all the defined connections or only the selected connections. On the right-hand side, the BIMserver.center options allow us to update the model to reflect changes made to other files linked to the project, as well as share the information generated in StruBIM Steel once the work has been completed. If we access the second tab, Documents, we see that the 4 panels on the left-hand side and the work area display will remain, with new options appearing in the top toolbar. The first group of options allows us to carry out the numbering of the parts and assemblies that make up the structure, either automatically or manually. The assemblies are groupings of parts in the structure that are connected by bolts or welds made in the workshop. This can be modified in the definition of operations for each connection. Then, with the Sheets options, we can generate the drawings of the parts, the assemblies, the joints, and the model views. This provides us with a working interface for creating and editing drawings that is shared with the OpenBIM layout program. Here, we can extract views and information from the model by means of scenes, tags, and tables that can be freely placed on each sheet. We can also incorporate traditional drawing elements and use dimensioning tools. If we close this window, we return to the program's general interface. Using the composition option, we also access the Edit Sheets interface, but this time all the sheets that have been created are shown through an integrated display. Using the options on the left-hand side, we can navigate between the different sheets or print them out either separately or together. Again, in the general interface, using List, we can access the list of sheets to manage the status of each one of them. From here, we can also click on Edit to access the Edit Sheets interface for each part, assembly, connection, or view of the model. The last group of options in the top toolbar allows us to obtain reports of quantities of the structure, either complete, by assemblies, or by parts. The program also has a number of additional tools. This way, from the File menu on the top left, we can create and save files or manage the user license. In the top corner, there are options to save the job, undo and redo operations, obtain reports of results, and export the model information to manufacturing formats such as DSTV and STEP, as well as to IFC EM11 exchange files, which we can obtain after developing the job in the program. In the top right-hand corner, we manage the connection to BIMserver.center by logging in with our user on this platform. In the bar underneath, we find options shared with other programs that allow us to perform operations such as moving or orbiting the model, managing the template views and snaps, or accessing the general configuration options.